Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Total War Arena. So today we are taking a look at the Tier 8 Roman Italian Nobles. So the equivalent cavalry, obviously, which I have done another review on, is the Tier 8 Barbarian Cavalry, the Niflheim Riders, or the Nilfheim Riders. And I've also been doing reviews sort of going up the Roman Cavalry tech tree, so we've done sort of the Legionary Cavalry, the Equites, the Celeres. And really, these Italian nobles are basically a pretty similar continuation from the rest of the Roman tech tree. We've just had update 2.4 released for the game today, and for some reason now this unit interface has stopped working. It's obviously just a slight bug. But if you remember the earlier, the Legionary Cavalry, we can have a quick look at the stats here, obviously had very heavy armour, very good survivability, particularly once they entered Oath of Perseverance, and had a decent attack and a solid charge. Very good all-round units. And really, the same continues with the Italian Noble Cavalry, though with a slight difference. I think tier for tier, their armour and survivability is a little bit lower, but they've gained much increased in terms of attack, in terms of sword damage. They're sword infantry rather than a spear cavalry like the others. And so that's given them sort of an increased attack, but for a slight loss in defence. Although, having said that, I've not yet got them very upgraded. I've only just started going up the weapon upgrades, and we've still got a few armour upgrades to go, which are going to give sort of a relative increase to their survivability and defence as well. So how do they compare to the Niflheim Riders? If we quickly flip over to Arminius and the Niflheim Riders, you'll see that really the Romans get much better survivability and defence, even the Italian nobles being reduced compared to the previous units. Obviously, the Barbarian Cavalry focus on speed and obviously have very little or to no body armour. Limited survivability. They do have good shields which gives missile block, but the armour is nothing. And they have a similar attack. And consequently, I find that the Romans are a lot easier to play. You can make a mistake with the Romans, get caught in a fight, and then get out of it and live to fight another day. The Barbarians really struggle. Once you get into a fight, you get cut down very quickly if you get caught up with infantry. Whereas the Romans can really match infantry in a fight so long as they're not like tier 10s or something like that. So I prefer the Romans, find them much easier to play, although the lack of speed does sort of take away some of the opportunities that the Barbarians can give you. The final thing to say is, obviously, as I just said, update 2.4 has been released, and supposedly we've seen increases in turn speed of almost all cavalry units, which is obviously good for the Romans, should allow them to get out, disengage from infantry fights easier than it was before, so that's only a good thing for us. So let's hop into battle and see how we get on. So we're just loading into the battle at Germania. We've got fairly brutal matchmaking on this game. Obviously that's something that's sort of a product of the closed beta, not really being enough players. Hopefully, obviously later on in the game we'll get some slightly better matchmaking. But yeah, tier 10, pretty brutal, lots of high tier cavalry. This is obviously our team, but we can expect the enemy team to get a similar lineup. So we'll see what we end up facing off against. So, I'd say the first thing, obviously, about these units, same as all the other Roman units, is speed is not your friend. They are pretty slow. So you have got to bear that in mind. You won't be able to get away from Barbarian Cavalry. They will catch you up. If they want to force a fight, they can do. Obviously, you know, if they're going to catch you up, you're far better to turn and countercharge them. But you should be able to stay away from Greek Cavalry. They're pretty slow as well, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem for us. So we've got some friendly tier 10 Noble Horse here. And some tier 7 spearmen advancing through, so that's kind of blocked that passage off. So let's kind of keep out this way. Let's have a look at what we've got over here. But being lower tier in this game, it's certainly going to be a bit of a game where we're just going to have to sort of skirt around, see what we find, what opportunities present themselves. We can't really lead the charge being, you know, sort of a lower tier unit. Although compared to the Barbarian Cavalry, I do find these units easier to play at these higher tier matches. Their high aggression does mean they can actually do some damage at least against other people. So what have we got going on here? So these guys are charging the guys down here, and they've just run into some caltraps. So we're going to keep one unit away. Let's get one charge off, I think, with one unit. And we'll probably go the same with this unit as well. A little bit of friendly archer fire. It would be better if they focus this one, which they are now doing. Good. I'm going to countercharge into the back of these guys. It would be better if these guys could stop firing. I know they're not trying to do any friendly fire on purpose. We've got some more proven warriors moving in, some tier 6. So let's get a thing off, activate both of our thing, and we'll go into Oath of Perseverance mode because we're taking quite a lot of damage here. So we've got to watch out for that. Finish off the Phalanxmen had got an XP boost in the. See, that is what I would class as really unhelpful friendly fire, just shooting in when there's like one remaining enemy and just shooting just for the sake of trying to cause friendly damage. So we got those Phalanxmen. It did protect these units of light artillery, which is good. Good to have them still in the game. We've got some tier 10 Hellenic cavalry loitering around the middle, along with plenty of archers. Probably best to keep away from that. We'll take quite a lot of fire from those tier 10s. Once they activate... forgot the word. Once they activate barrage, that's the one. Once they activate barrage, that's pretty devastating pretty quickly. Try not to get caught by our friendly scorpion fire. So there was some enemy archers down here, so I'm going to move into the shade here. There we go, look, there's their barrage. Almost wipes those units out completely. So we just got these enemy archers. Let's activate the charge. I hadn't expected them to be quite that close. So as you'd expect, these units have a pretty good charge. So we'll activate our massacre to try and get a bit more effective damage. We are going to have some friendly spearmen, enemy spearmen moving in, but I'm going to hold my ground. We'll activate damage. I think it's worth it for the amount of damage we're doing against these spearmen. There's some friendly noble horse. I would have thought these guys are going to push around the back. So we'll keep up our damage on these guys. We've got the enemy pipe phalanx is cut into phalanx mode, so they're doing quite a bit of damage. So let's get out of here. Let's pull back before we get completely slaughtered. So we lost quite a few minutes then, but we did basically smash those 3 units of enemy archers, so it's probably a worthwhile trade. Given we're tier 8, I don't immediately want to take on some Imperial Guard. That wouldn't be such a good thing. Well, they are taking quite a lot of damage, so it could be worthwhile. It looks like those noble horse have sort of done quite a bit of damage to them. If we can force a fight with these Hellenic cavalry without suffering the charge like that, I certainly will. Let's turn on them. We didn't get a charge off because we were too close, but we'll certainly have a go against them. They are 2 tiers higher than us, so despite the fact that the Greek cavalry isn't so good, they're still going to be a bit careful because they'll still be fairly tough type. But if we can get it to rout, then they'll probably die because they've not got enough morale left like that. So we killed those guys. Some tier 10s out of the game. It looks like everyone is massacring everyone very quickly here. Seems into a pretty brutal fight in the centre. Let's just see if we can... Oh, those guys are dead. So... God, I don't really know what's going on. There's cavalry everywhere. We've got a lot of cavalry left on our team, whereas the enemy seem to have predominantly infantry. Which is interesting. They've got quite a few higher tier Roman infantry in the centre, which we've got to watch out for. And obviously we haven't got that many people left, so really I'm just looking to try and find a fight where I can offer support. So it looks like some tier 7 Romans are getting engaged down here, and they're going to rout the enemy Romans, so we can certainly get involved with these enemy spear infantry as they enter phalanx. So let's get round and turn in for the charge. Activate our charge. Try and get them right in the back. Which we did. Rear flanked. Good amount of damage. Let's get war cry off and activate our extra damage. And then try and see if we can get a good amount of damage on them. We should be able to get them to rout, really. Although they're holding their ground very well. I'm surprised they didn't rout at that. Maybe they've got a buff. Hold the line. Yes, giving them a massive morale boost. They've sort of turned around on us a little bit. So let's perhaps try and get out of this one. Now, whether we're going to be able to get this on any morale intact, I do not know. That turn speed increase has been significant, actually. We were able to disengage from that fight a lot quicker than pre-patch, so that has made a difference. These guys are still vaguely walking afterwards, I think. So we've got about 4 men left now. A bit of a limited how effective we can actually be now, but we shall keep fighting on. Let's have a look what we've got. These guys, these spearmen here, I think we'd be better off just charging into the back of these guys, to be honest. We should be able to at least do a bit of damage before we hit. We've got a war cry we can activate. I think we'll just fight on to the bitter end now. Do what damage we can against these guys before we meet our end. And there we go. How did we do? Where are we? A reasonable amount of aggression damage, considering we are a lot lower tier than the bulk of the people in the game. And it looks like we are going to win in the end. These tier 10 Roman light artillery did quite a good job of continually laying down fire. It's quite effective, particularly at just slowly decimating them, and you can see the rate of health drop. It's actually quite significant, and they fire quite rapidly. Maybe this is a tech tree that we should look at going down going forwards. But it looks like we are going to win the game. I'm not quite. These guys look like they're just going to go in with capping. So obviously other changes that have been brought about by 2.4 is quite a few changes to the pike mechanics. They sort of basically, the long-term effect is that they've reduced the turn speed. So the pikes can now longer, instead of sort of pivoting on the spot to be able to turn around very quickly or being able to pull out and form a new line, very quickly can no longer do that. Which is obviously good for me as a predominantly cavalry player, but bad obviously for pikes and hoplites, who are obviously quite upset probably at the loss of turn speed that they've enjoyed for so long. So that's going to be an interesting change to see how that plans out. It's probably going to reduce the effectiveness of pikes overall. Although this guy with his tier 7 who managed to sort of kill us off has done a fairly good job given his tier. Looks like there's still a few enemy units kicking around. I kind of don't think this... oh, it's relative strength. Okay, this is something that's changed I hadn't noticed. I was thinking before it used to represent the total numbers of enemy units remaining, whereas now I think it shows relative strength of your team. Because I was looking and I was just thinking, I'm sure there's more than 34 men here. I might not be able to count brilliantly, but there's definitely more than that. So that's obviously something they've changed. See, the guy here with his Romans has set up his ballistas there, and he set up one on the flank to provide supporting fire. It's actually doing a very devastating job against these infantry. But the enemy infantry are nearly upon him, although his Depacton is now running, which is a very clever move. He might actually manage to avoid the enemy charge there. It's definitely a tech tree we're going to have to look at. He's played this battle very well. And it looks like the bulk of our forces are now in the enemy base and just capping. The Praetorian Cavalry. This is the unit we've got to look forward to next after the tier 8s. Very highly rated. Sort of go back to much more like the Equites with very heavy armour as well as a good attack. So that's a unit I'm kind of quite looking forward to playing. But these Italian Nobles seem pretty decent as well, particularly for their tier. And as I say, particularly compared to what I have experienced previously from the Barbarian tier 8 Cavalry, I find these guys a lot easier to play. And I don't know if that's necessarily to say that the Barbarian Cavalry aren't so good, because I think they are. I just think the skill required to effectively play the Barbarian Cavalry is a lot higher, and that's probably something I don't necessarily possess. And that sort of, in turn, has made it harder for me to make good use of their speed, whereas the Romans, obviously being better fighter, better defence, is kind of easier to play, and even if you make a bad mistake, you could just enter Aether Perseverance and fight on to the bitter end, in which case you're going to do at least some damage anyway, whereas the Barbarian will just get slaughtered really quickly. So we'll just wait for this battle to finish off. We might as well see to the end of it now we've sat through so much. Our Legatus is the tier 10 Roman Cavalry, our equivalent, obviously with absolutely amazing defence. As you can see, the 1021 defence points is obviously very high, and a very solid attack. Really good melee weapon damage. Just killing off these last units of Praetorians who are fighting on. Actually doing quite a good job of holding on. What else is there left? There's a couple of enemy units in our base, but I think they've sort of just given up. They're just attacking these ballistas. Just did an amazing job of defending and retreating and defending and retreating and defending. It's really a good example of how they should be played. And that is the end of all that lot. So, and we are about to cap, and this will be the end of the game. Someone got set as AFK. Come on, just finish it off. That's an interesting change, how they've changed that total lives mechanic just to be a relative strength. So, victory. Obviously we're nowhere near top player, but I think we played respectably considering we were sort of tier 8, one of the lower tiers in the game. So let's have a look how we did. So we've got a good amount of free experience and unit experience. Obviously fighting higher tiers, when you do a lot of damage to high tiers you get more experience than if you kill equivalent lower tier units. Same like World of Tanks, plays out similarly. They've also added in this closed beta reward so we can see how you're progressing. That's one of the new things they've introduced in 2.4, although that won't be relevant if you're watching this video after we've gone into open beta, that sort of thing. And score wise we got 4th, decent amount of damage, a little bit of defence and support points. So yes, I like the Italian Noble Cavalry, continuing the excellent Roman Cavalry tech tree. So far, I mean, I really must say that this has been my favourite tech tree to play. Very easy to play, very good damage, A very good defence, very versatile units, and that is really continued in this, and I expect it to be continued in the Praetorians and the Legatus at tier 10. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video, guys. If you have, if you found it informative or vaguely useful, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel for lots more Total War Arena content. We'll also be, I know I've been meaning to do some more streaming for quite a while and I haven't been, but go and follow me on Twitch and we shall be having some more Total War Arena streams coming up shortly. So thanks guys, and I shall see you in the next episode.